Alright, hello Astro subscribers, and welcome back to another video, actually the final video in the series of House Lords. And I've already been through it 11 times now, but I'll do it a 12th time for those of you who this might be your first video of this series watching. Preface: if you haven't watched the videos on the signs, the houses, just all the introductory basic video stuff, what you need to do is go back and watch those until you have a very good understanding of it, because this is more advanced astrology. This combines fundamental techniques like the house system interpretation, the sign system interpretation, etc., and it combines them into a way, or into a method called the Lord system, that basically lets you take the dispositor of a house, the house placement of the dispositor itself, and allows you to understand what is powering the house that you're interpreting. So for instance, let's say, for example's sake, you're a Leo ascendant with Venus in the third house. That means your 10th lord, which is Taurus, and your third lord are going to be in wherever Venus is. So basically the dispositor of the particular house and sign placement that you're trying to analyze, the dispositor there is going to be the thing that is charging those houses, that is giving them their power, and you're going to see where the effects of those houses and signs are coming from. So without further ado, let's get into the 12th lord through houses. So what is the 12th house? The 12th house is a place where your unconscious mind is. It's a place of imagination, fantasy, dreams, transcendent, non-material goals and ideals. So it's the place where philosophy emerges out of. So the 9th house, or relating to the sign of Sagittarius, is the area of your life where you have a dogma. You have a set of rules, a foundational principle for your beliefs. It's organized philosophy. The 12th house is disorganized philosophy. And as such, it is the sum total of all philosophies. It's the place that philosophies emerge out of. It also relates to dreams, imagination, sexual stuff, so because that's also imagination. It deals with isolation. It deals with jails, prisons, asylums, places that people go. Like if you're in an asylum, it's because you're dreaming awake. You're seeing things that aren't there or aren't there. What's really going on is that you're fixated on the 12th house. You're fixated on the dream world, the astral world, the world of isolation, the solipsistic world that only exists in your head. So that's the 12th house. Short and simple, it's the dream world. So what does the 12th lord signify? The 12th lord, well, whatever your 12th house is from your ascendant, the planet that rules that is your 12th lord, and wherever the 12th lord is, that's where the effects of the 12th house get seen. So for instance, 12th lord in the first house, if you have 12th lord in the first house, you are going to have your personality, your core self, your ambition, your drive, that Aries in the first house represents, is going to be influenced by the 12th house. So you are going to be sort of distant from your personality and goals, and you are going to have sort of a drifting self-image. Other people are going to see you as floating through, kind of detached, head in the clouds. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to have ambition. It depends on the 12th lord and whatnot, but when people see you very clearly, they're going to get the sense that you are detached, that you are not quite present in your body. because you're in the dream world, which is fine. The second lord in the 12th house. What happens here? What happens here is that I've seen a couple different ways that this manifests. The first one is that people become detached from the material world. And so I don't want to scare anybody, but I have seen like people who they keep losing jobs, they keep losing opportunities because it's not because they don't want them, they're just not interested. Or let's put it like this. They don't lose opportunities by fighting or through conflict. Like, it's not because somebody took it from them. It's because they're focused on something higher, something else. And it can be very hard to connect that transcendent ideal to the physical world that they live in day by day. So that can be frustrating. The other type of person I've seen with this is a person who genuinely connects the transcendent to the material, and those people are very special and very interesting, but they are rare and often, and one of these types of people can turn into the other type. So you can have a person who struggles to connect the transcendent to the material, and then eventually, maybe later in their life, it just clicks. And some people get it early. So it really just depends on the rest of the chart specifically. Like, if you have a high intelligence and a good work ethic, it's much more likely that you're going to be able to connect the material with the abstract. But if not, it can be very difficult. And even if you have a high intelligence, sometimes that high intelligence can just get in your own way. So third lord in the 12th house is a person who is going to have sort of a drifting, detached communication style. They can ramble. This isn't necessarily the best placement for the 12th house, although if you watch my video on debilitated Mercury, I explain the relationship between Mercury and the 12th house. And since Mercury naturally rules the third house, looking at that video would be very, very helpful to understand what happens when the third lord goes in the 12th lord goes in the third house. What happens basically is a person becomes very open-minded, but also they can be so open-minded that they lose track of details and miss and also their communication can suffer because they're so big picture that their thoughts can just kind of freeze, and they can have trouble communicating in a way that makes sense to other people who aren't in that big picture framework or have a different big picture. So 12th lord in the 4th house. Okay, this is an interesting one. This basically is a person who has a very, very good dream life. They're grounded to their transcendent ideals. And the reason for that is because the 4th house is the place where the dream and the reality meet. So it's the place where the physical and the material meet. Why? Because the 4th house is your home, and it's the south direction, and it is the direction of the underworld. It is the direction of midnight. If you look at the world as a clock, with true north being, or up being Capricorn, and down being Cancer, and Aries is the eastern horizon where the sun rises, and Libra is the sunset. That's basically the world that Western astrology takes place in. And it's a symbolic world. It is a metaphysical world. But it's the world that we perceive. And the concept of the 4th house being down and south and Cancer and cardinal water, this is the place where you sleep. It's your home. It's the place where you are at midnight, wherever you are at midnight. It's also the unconscious mind, and your unconscious mind is more active at night. Psychological studies have shown that. So basically, The 12th Lord in the 4th house puts the dreamer, in the bed, in the home. And that's where the dreamer wants to be. The dreamer doesn't want to be out working on a construction site in noon, like Capricorn. It doesn't want to be waking up. The dreamer wants to be at home, where he's happy. So this is or she's happy. This is a good placement. And this doesn't necessarily mean that this person's going to be lazy. It just means that they're going to be able to find peace, relaxation, and imagination when they're at home. So, all right. 12th Lord in the 5th house. Apologies, all this talking about 12th Lord and sleep and stuff is making me tired. So 12th Lord in the 5th house is a position where the imagination comes into the creativity and the artistic talent. So this is actually a pretty good placement because of all the fire signs, Leo is the one that exists at night. It is right next to Cancer, so it's right before midnight in terms of the zodiac clock. And it represents art. It represents gathering around a fire. The best way I can think of to describe Leo is just before midnight, the 2 hours or 3 hours before midnight, let's say 9 p.m. to midnight or to like 11 p.m. Imagine tribal people before there were cities, and they're gathered around a fire and they've already done everything they need to do for the day, and somebody puts on a mask and starts dancing. That's Leo. That's the archetype of the performer. And for a modern understanding, a modern interpretation of that archetype, imagine that you get home and it's night, the sun's down, it's been down for like an hour or two, and you turn on Netflix. So Leo is also cinema. You're watching a movie, you're watching entertainment. And that's what the sign of Leo is. So putting the imagination with Leo actually works out really, really well. So this is one of those 12th Lord and fire sign placements where the imagination can actually work in the creative domain. So this is actually very good. All right. 12th Lord in the 6th house. So this is an interesting one. This is one where people's work needs to align with their transcendent ideals. So on a very mundane level, this could be somebody who works in a hospital. This could be somebody who works in an asylum, who works in medicine, particularly with psychology and psychiatry or healing, some kind of healing, maybe philosophy. Basically, their service to others needs to be a sort of spiritual, metaphysical, or psychological. It needs to have those elements in it. So that's definitely what 12th Lord in the 6th house means. And if they find themselves doing something that's not in the service of that, then they'll find themselves being drawn away from it, even toward nothing. So, these are the type of people who will quit their job because they felt like it wasn't serving them spiritually and go live in the woods. That can be the type of person that this is. All right, so 12th Lord in the 7th house. The imagination comes into the relationships. The main problem that I see with this is a good placement actually, but the main problem that I see with this is a person sets expectations a little bit too high for the other person. And if they can find a person who meets those expectations and who also has the same reciprocal attraction for them, then this is great. But if they can't, then they're going to be very frustrated, and they might have to meditate on lowering their standards. If you have this placement and you find yourself frustrated, meditate on the dualism of the exalted and debilitated Venus in Pisces and Virgo. Understand that dialectic, and it will help you to sort of moderate this placement. Because this is a pretty extreme placement because you're projecting your ideals onto your anima or animus. Okay, so 12th Lord in the 8th house. The imagination comes into hidden knowledge and secrets. So this is an extreme imagination placement. This is a person who, the best example I can really think of this is like Alex Jones, which I know he's a controversial figure, but it's a pretty good example. It's a person who sees the darkness and sees the weirdness of the imagination. All of the things that are hidden, secret, subversive, conspiratorial, their imagination goes into that. And, you can say what you want about Alex Jones. He's been wrong about a lot of things. But he was also the one who discovered the Bohemian Grove and how all these, bankers and politicians were, worshiping a statue of Moloch. And he also told people about Jeffrey Epstein years before it happened. So, people like this, they can be wrong a lot about what's going on in the imagination. They can have trouble telling imagination from reality and all this stuff, but sometimes they're right. And when they're right, they change things a lot because they're often the canaries in the coal mines that tell people what's going on before even the news. So this is an interesting placement for sure. All right. 12th Lord in the 9th house. This is when the imagination comes into organized religion and belief systems. This can be a troublesome placement because it's a person who questions authority, and they're always questioning authority. So this person can be a little bit unstable, but often they won't care about the instability because they are obsessed with truth. So in a way, this is a very noble placement. It can just be difficult to be around other people with it because they're always questioning beliefs in a way that other people might not be inclined to do. 12th Lord in the 10th house. 12th Lord in the 10th house, imagination comes into work and purpose. This is a bit better than the 12th Lord in the 6th house materially because with 12th Lord in the 6th house, it rules your day-to-day routine and you have to align your everyday routine that you do every time the sun comes up with the transcendent ideal. That can be difficult. With the 12th Lord in the 10th house, you basically have your long-term goal that takes place over 30 years or 60 years or 90 or your whole life. Very slow-moving planet, Saturn. You have that related to the transcendent ideals. So this is like your 30-year plan as opposed to your everyday routine that composes your 30-year plan. So if your life goals are based on your transcendent ideals, it makes a lot more sense as opposed to if your day-to-day routine has to be serving your ideals. Obviously, there are connections here, but it's a lot easier to make your life plan match your transcendent ideals than your day-to-day plan. 11th Lord in the 12th house. So 11th Lord is interesting because it's the higher material self as opposed to the higher imaginative self. So the main difference between the 11th Lord and the 12th Lord is that the 11th Lord deals with the transcendent material. So this is where science fiction and tech Batman billionaire type mentality comes in, as opposed to the guru who is levitating in a cave somewhere. So when you have the transcendent material merging with the transcendent ideal, the imagination, what tends to happen is this person has big dreams, and they have a hard time actualizing them, obviously. And this can be frustrating, but generally this is a pretty good placement because if you shoot for the moon, you land amongst the stars. So, or you just, go up and then crash into the ocean. Just kidding. Hopefully you land amongst the stars with this placement. But it can be very frustrating, especially in your early life, because your ideals can be so big that they seem almost impossible. And maybe they are, but at least you can get close, hopefully. And who knows, you might just become Iron Man. And then 12th Lord in the 12th house is a placement which the dreams sort of support themselves and the dreams reinforce themselves, and this is a more healthy placement because this person has a very good dream life, very stable dream life, and they can also compartmentalize this dream life, and it doesn't necessarily affect areas of their life where it becomes a problem. So this is a good placement, and if you want more info, look at my video on the Pisces ascendant, because that's basically the life plan of this person's 12th house, is the nature of the 12th house and Pisces as such. So check that out. All right, so that was the completion of the series of Lords through Houses, and I will be doing a new series soon with the next video. And if you have any preferences on topics you want me to cover, drop it in the comments. I read the comments on a regular basis, and even though I don't always reply, and I will definitely take your opinions into account. So feel free to do that. But I will be deciding on the next topic of the series, or topic of the next series, over the coming week or two. And when I make a new video, I will let you guys know. So until then, have a good one. And this is Astro Bros.